Hi friends, welcome to CodeNet, and today we want to understand how we can work with variables in PHP. I just opened the actual project that we were working on and the one that we've saved from our previous session. If you are joining us from this video, please double check the description. There is a video that will allow you to see and understand how you can configure all the necessary softwares for you to even reach the level where you can now say, okay, I'm seeing my code on my browser, either Google Chrome, Edge or anything. So now we want to understand what are variables in PHP. Well, variables, like in any other programming language, are simply seen as containers. A variable is simply a container that holds on to certain data. For example, you might want to keep ages of different people in a certain container, or should I say ages of different people or students. If a student says I'm 18 years old, I'm 25 years old, you might want to keep such information safely somewhere. We keep them in what we call variables. Hence, a variable is simply a container. Now we need to understand, okay, how can we work with these containers now in PHP, and what are the benefits of having the containers in PHP? Let's see how we can first create a variable. Once we see how a variable can be created, which we call in programming declaring a variable, then definitely we'll understand the benefits of using the variables. So to declare a variable in PHP, or to create a variable in PHP, we always start with the syntax of PHP. So don't forget, a syntax from the previous session needs first to be implemented before we proceed on the actual implementation of variables. So to implement the syntax, it's simply the less than sign, the actual question mark, then PHP, and definitely we leave some space where we'll be implementing our code, and we even close the actual syntax. So the script of PHP, we've denoted their starting point and ending point. So now to create the actual variable of PHP, we first need to implement a $sign. Don't forget, always a $sign or symbol should be implemented. Then we can say, okay, age. Immediately when we say age, then we are more like saying, okay, I'm now creating a container. This container will only keep ages, or should I say numbers or an age of a certain individual. And definitely we can also implement an equal sign where we are saying, okay, this is a variable called age, and what should be inside this variable is simply 34. You also end that with a semicolon. So we've declared and initialized also the content that should go inside the variable age. Another type of variable is simply the variable that can hold on to multiple characters. Multiple characters, what I mean is, we've created a variable at first that is holding on to a whole number. Now what if you want to hold text like, hey, I love CodeNet? What type of variable, and how can you actually implement the variable? Okay, so always to implement a variable, whether what or what type of variable, the $sign should always be first, and then let's just say, okay, love, that's the name of the variable, and then we put an equal sign, and then immediately, since this variable will hold on to multiple characters, then we should either open or put the content that we want to be inside this variable inside the double quotes or inside single quotes. But though with me, I like using the double quotes because it is definitely one of the popular ways that we implement even in other programming languages. So you put, of course, the double quotes, and you've seen I've left space in between the content, and then I'm just saying, okay, hey, I love CodeNet, and definitely you even put the semicolon. So what we've done is we've made two types of variables. The first variable is holding on to whole numbers, which is 34, the age of maybe a certain individual, or maybe, I don't know, any human being. And then we've also created another variable that is holding on to multiple characters. I mean, if not the whole numbers or a number and characters, then what other type of variable do we want to create? So we've done our level best to declare a variable in PHP. Now, what are some of the rules that we need to be careful with when it comes to the variables in PHP? Firstly, the very first rule is don't ever forget to implement or to add a $sign to any variable that you want to implement. The $sign, like on age, it should be first, and also on love you can tell that as the name of the variable the $sign was first. Then another rule that you shouldn't forget is actually the fact that immediately after the $sign, the actual thing that should follow the $sign is either an underscore or simply a letter of the alphabet. You can't create a variable starting with a $sign. This is simply an example, and then you also put a number and then you say blah blah. No, this isn't a variable. If not a letter like in age and love, then start with an underscore and then say care and then an equal sign, and then of course you can implement using double quotes or single quotes, and then you can say I care for my students. So this is also another variable, but with this variable we started with an underscore and not a letter. So this is again one of the very sensitive things that we need to pay much attention to. Another rule when it comes to the variables in PHP, what you shouldn't forget is all variables are case sensitive. Variables are case sensitive. They are definitely case sensitive. A variable like age, you can tell age is in lower cases, which is of course the small letters of the alphabet. Again, we can create another variable which we say age is equal to 24. So this variable is far different from this variable age, since we are using of course the upper cases, and in the first variable we are using the lower cases. Then these are two different variables. So variables are case sensitive in PHP. So how can we now output content inside the variables? Content outputting inside the variables. To output content inside the variables, we use the keyword which is echo, the echo statement I would say, and then from there we can even say okay echo, and then we implement of course the actual variable. We can say echo love, and definitely when we go on our browser, I'm sure you understand what is happening. You can tell that my XAMPP is up and running, so your XAMPP server should also be up and running, and my document is on autosave, and so no need to be doing Ctrl+S and anything related to that. So you can also place your document on autosave. If you don't understand all this content, how to prepare the XAMPP server and anything, check the description. There is a short video that will definitely teach you on how to do these things. So when I go on my browser now, of course you can tell this is my browser. Immediately when I refresh the browser, hey, I love coordinate. So down here you can tell that okay, it's saying I love coordinate because I was outputting the content that was inside the love as a variable, which is hey, I love coordinate, and definitely that's the content that's on the output. If I want, I can change and then output the content that's in age, the age with lowercase. Immediately when I refresh, you can see that 34 is on the output. And immediately for we to see if age and age in uppercase as variables, they are two different things, I can also output the content in age, which is age. Definitely when I refresh, you can see that I have a 24 on the output. What if we want to precede the content inside the variable age, of course with some text? Then definitely, like we were doing it from our previous session, the echo, the text that we want to output which isn't in the variable as we will specify, should be in between the double quotes or single quotes when it comes to echo. So I can say my age is, definitely I can do that, but when it comes to the variable, it can either be outside the double quotes or inside the double quotes. I mean, we don't have problems with such things when it comes to PHP. So I personally, I like putting of course the actual variable also inside the same double quotes. So my age is, you put of course the $sign because we want to specify that this is a variable, and don't always forget to terminate all the codes with a semicolon. Immediately when I refresh, my age is 34. So that is what we call variable declaration. But is it possible to add the two numbers? Yes, definitely that can happen. So we want to add the content of age as a variable, which is 34, to the content in age in uppercases as a variable on its own, which is 24. So to do that, we can just say okay, age, which is, let me just use another echo. You can just say echo age as a variable. Don't forget a $sign, age of course, plus another age now in uppercases, and then definitely when you do that, immediately we will see the actual addition of 34 plus a 24. If we refresh, definitely we are seeing a 58. So it is definitely, we can even do the mathematics in between variables and the like. So this is the actual presentation that we can give, and the actual first hand basics that we can outline when it comes to the variables in PHP. A variable should start with a $sign, and then the next thing should be either a letter of the alphabet or simply an underscore, and then an equal sign denotes that the next content is what will go into the variable. And you can also output the variables using an echo statement. Let's proceed on our next session as we understand the difference between echo and print, and let's also have a clear view of what echo is and how we can work with echo in PHP. Please don't forget to subscribe, and you are on CodeNet.